Welcome. My name is Marae and I'm part of the TFA family. And if you're new with us, we are an academy created by parents for parents to help you prepare and achieve successful flights with your baby and toddler. Today, we will be discussing how to help your baby and or toddler prepare for takeoff and landing so their ears don't hurt and are not popping. First things first, let's talk about takeoff. So before takeoff, one thing that I recommend is that you explain to your toddler, and this only applies if you have a toddler. If you have a baby, they may not be able to fully understand. I started doing this with my baby since she was about a year old, but obviously I've seen a lot more results with it as she gets older because she can comprehend what I'm saying. But one thing that I really recommend doing is preparing your child for what's about to happen. What I mean by that is, obviously, as well before the flight, this is a different topic, but today we're just talking specifically for takeoff and landing. So if you're waiting at the airport right before boarding a flight, or if you're sitting on your seat before the flight takes off, it's a good idea to let your toddler look out the window, explain how everything works. If you're sitting behind the wing, you can show the engines of the plane, and, all the little things that you can say to get them excited about the experience, but also warn them that there might be a little bit of fast movement, some noise as the plane takes off, and then it'll shake a little bit, but after a little bit, it'll just settle down and then we'll be in the air. And one thing I like to do with my toddler, especially recently, is let her know that when the little seatbelt light is on, that means we have to be strapped in for our safety as the plane is taking off or landing or going through turbulence. And when the light is off, she can take it off and play and walk around and do her thing. And this comes in handy, especially if you have a wiggly or very active toddler that wants to move around and do certain things, and obviously they're not able to. And if you're not allowed to bring a car seat, this really helped me out on our last flight when we couldn't bring a car seat. We just I just started telling her, hey, you cannot take off because look at this light. And it really helped her, I think, understand that it was not just me not wanting her to do something, but rather this is the rule, right? So before you take off, and especially before landing as well, make sure you let them know we're about to experience some really loud noises. It's about to be really shaky and rocky, especially if you have a child that tends to be more sensitive to noise or abrupt movement, etc., etc. Moving on, the next point is a bathroom run. So this is common sense. One thing that I recommend every parent do is obviously always run to the restroom right before boarding. This is going to obviously save you a lot of headaches. It's going to prevent you from running around trying to change your child as everybody's trying to board. But it also is extremely convenient and a good idea to do for your toddlers or baby's sake. So if you're experiencing some fear because there's turbulence, if your ears are popping and obviously you're experiencing discomfort, or if you're just in a foreign situation like taking off and landing, or a first plane ride can be for a baby and or toddler, you don't want to have any additional discomfort. And so taking your toddler to change their diaper, if you couldn't do it before boarding, as soon as you get on the plane, before the plane takes off, it's going to get them in their optimal level of comfort regarding their diaper, and obviously in a much more better place for takeoff and landing. One thing I always recommend you do is as soon as you board a plane, ask a flight attendant or locate, if you can see it, which is a restroom that has the changing table. So sometimes in a flight, in a plane, you'll have out of the 3 restrooms, one of them has a changing table. The other day I had a flight where every restroom had a changing table. This has never been the case before. We've had hundreds of flights with our baby. Usually there's 1 or 2 restrooms that do have a changing table. And even if you're not able to lay your toddler down, even if you're doing the standing, change, it's good to know where that table is because some restrooms are really small and there's not enough room to have your toddler stand while you change them. So I always locate these. If you don't have time for whatever reason, let's say you were running late or, whatever, you had to board early, you can always do this as everybody is boarding. So you leave yourself on the seat, you run to the restroom, change your baby, and when you come out, obviously you just want to make sure that you let other people get to their seats before you continue walking backwards, because that could be a little complicated on a plane. So first and foremost, better idea to do it before you board. But if you haven't had a chance to do that, I always recommend you do it before you depart. Right in that moment between their, boarding and waiting for the last people to come in, you have plenty of time to run to the restroom, change that diaper so your baby or toddler is not taking off with some discomfort situation. Same thing for landing. Try to change that diaper. You don't know how long you're going to be in immigration. You don't know how long you're going to be, let's say that they took off, the plane took off and you're already up in the air, but there's turbulence. So you're not able to take it off. And speaking from experience, a diaper that sits there too long is just not a very good idea for a flight. All right. Off to the next point. I'm sure you've heard of this one before, but get your baby chewing. And this doesn't mean a specific chew, a specific intensity of the chew. It could be anything. If you have a tiny baby, something like breastfeeding, something like formula feeding, drinking milk, drinking water. If you have an older baby that's already eating, chewing, or eating anything at all, as long as the jaw is moving, it's going to help them decompress the pressure in the ears. So obviously this is very, very helpful. I always recommend you have some snacks with you on the flight, but if you don't have snacks, just ask a flight attendant when you board or try to get something on the plane last minute. If you have formula, one thing I really recommend you do is you prep your formula before takeoff. So sometimes kids get fussy when it's takeoff time. Understandably, there's a lot of commotion, a lot of people, whatever the case may be. So I recommend you get your hot water for your formula before you board a plane. In the plane, they're likely able to give you cold water if you're when you're deplaning, when you're landing when they're landing the plane. So for landing, you can ask your flight attendant for both hot water and cold water and mix it and make a perfect mixture for the formula. But when you get on the plane, the flight attendants usually have so much going on with preparing the flight for takeoff that they may not be able to give you hot water. So what I recommend you do is you run to your nearest Starbucks or coffee shop in the airport and ask for hot water. Most airports these days have filtered water already provided for you, so you can use that and just fill up a bottle with hot water and a container with cold water and just mix it in the plane. That way you have that ready for takeoff and you're not like running around trying to get your formula ready. Otherwise, if you have milk, just give them some milk. If not, water or anything else to chew on will get their minds off of what's happening, and also will help with the ears popping because of the pressure as the jaw will be moving. Something I wanted to add about flying with your baby and helping them get over the takeoff and landing pain and preparing them for the flight is it really comes in handy when you let your toddler know that they may experience some discomfort in their ears. This obviously won't work as well when you have a tiny baby, but when you have an older toddler, you are able to let them know, okay, when you go up and we change altitudes, you may feel some pressure here. When you feel that pressure, you can do this. And playing with these exercises with them may obviously look silly and whatever, but one, it'll get them distracted. Two, it gets them with your attention, which is what they want the most of. And three, obviously doing this, it's going to help with, right, the pressure on their head. But also it's going to prepare them for the pain they're experiencing. It's not the same thing taking off on a flight, everything's great, and all of a sudden you're feeling pain in your ears, then being told, hey, you will feel pressure in your ears, you may have a headache, try doing this, and that, right? So always remember that talking to a toddler or a baby will get you further than not. And we have this misconception that they don't understand anything because they're so little, but it's actually proven that they understand a lot more than they're capable of saying. So do not disregard this tip and try out telling your toddler, hey, you will experience discomfort. Hey, we're about to do this on the flight. It's about to be noisy, etc., because it will actually help them understand what's going on and hopefully help them avoid any discomfort during takeoff or landing. Another tip we have is entertainment. Obviously, if we're entertained, even for us adults, if you're feeling pain and you're being distracted from that pain, you're going to feel less of that pain because your mind is not concentrating on it. So this is the time to break out the toy that you brought specifically for the flight, the time to bring out your favorite toy that you've been hiding for 2 weeks for the flight, the time to bring out whatever fun little thing you bought or the grandmother sent with, or any other form of entertainment. If you're okay with tablets, this is the time to give a tablet with their new cartoon, their favorite cartoon. I really recommend you download new episodes of their favorite shows before the flight and don't show it to them until the flight, because that means that they will be probably distracted by this show for the first hour or so, or 20 minutes or 30 minutes of the flight. And hopefully this is when you're taking off. So it'll distract them from what's going on. Another thing to do is games. If you don't like showing TV shows on the tablet, but you're okay with games, that could also work out. If not, regular toys work equally as well. The idea here is to distract your toddler from what is happening. So It even works if you have no toys and you want to have them see out the window. I've done it with my toddler, and we've played the game of, let's see, okay, the plane is leaving. Now it's the airport. Okay, can you still see the airport? Say bye-bye, airport. Okay, now what do you see? Oh, I see hills. I see mountains. I see the ocean. Whatever the case may be. It's all about interacting with your toddler and keeping them entertained so they're not concentrating on, oh my gosh, this is so loud, it's happening so fast, my ears are popping, I'm feeling this discomfort. Anything you can do to distract them will come in handy. Obviously, distracting them may not completely take away the pain, but it will make for a better time than if you're just having pain sitting there and just like not knowing what's happening. Another idea to do is to get your toddler yawning. Now, this is a little unconventional, but if you are an adult and you're watching this, you know that yawning is contagious. Your toddler doesn't know how to mimic a yawn or produce a yawn, but you do. So one thing to do if you have a smaller kid who may not be able to understand what's happening with the ear pressure and the discomfort is to get them yawning. So just start mimicking a yawning, a yawn, and see and wait until they catch on with it. It's usually contagious, so they'll start doing it as well. And that will automatically help them relieve the pressure. The first time around may be a little tricky to get them to do it, but once they get that yawn going, they'll feel automatically the difference in their ear, and the pressure will hopefully subside. So then they'll catch the drift that yawning helps them avoid ear pressure pain. Our next tip or suggestion is headphones or earmuffs. If you have a tiny baby, I really do recommend you bring noise canceling earmuffs for your baby either way, just because the noise from takeoff and landing can be really loud. But if you have an older kid who can be okay with that noise level, having headphones could still be really handy because one, they're not hearing all the commotion of taking off and or landing. So they're getting a little bit more distracted with whatever's happening inside of their earmuffs and or headphones. Obviously, if it's the earmuffs, there's nothing happening, but at least they're not hearing the noise. But if they have headphones on, they can hear whatever show, listen to music, whatever the case may be, whatever it is they're listening to, whether it's from the plane or something you brought with you. And this can really help out. One time, my daughter was having a hard time. She woke up abruptly right as we were landing, and she got really, really, really fussy. And one thing that really helped her out was music. So I started singing to her, but it was like 20 minutes to landing. It was a very long time. So I was like, well, I'm just going to sit here for 20 minutes, So then I had the idea, let me try the headphones with some music. And she loved it. And it actually got her to stop screaming, which I'm assuming the screaming was happening because of discomfort in the ears from the pressure of landing. So headphones with some music, with some recording, with some cartoon, with whatever it is that you have, or nothing, just to alleviate a little bit the noise that's going on. That usually helps them settle a little bit as well. Another thing that helps is cuddles. Obviously, our babies just want us and our love and our cuddles. So this is a good time to cuddle your baby, especially if you have a lap child. So obviously, if you have a child that is already sitting in their own seat or in their car seat, you're not able to take them off their seat to cuddle them for takeoff and landing. But if you have a lap infant, you are able to cuddle your baby, hug your baby, and just let them know you're there for them. Sometimes it's not really so much of the experience that's bad, but actually the not knowing what's happening that makes it so overwhelming. So similar to some of the other tips, getting them distracted from what's going on and letting them know they're supported and somebody's there with them and for them in this new situation can help them calm down a bit and not struggle so much with whatever they're feeling. If you have a child that's sitting in a car seat or a child that's sitting on their own seat, holding their hands, hugging them from above the armrest, just any kind of cuddle and love that you can show your child to let them know that they're not alone and that you are also experiencing this with them will most likely help them feel better in the moment, even if it doesn't completely eradicate the pain. Our last tip is to mentally prepare. Okay, so I know this is not what anybody wants to hear. I know we want everything to work out magically, and we wish that every flight with our toddlers went by amazingly, but the reality is that's just not the case. So one thing I do recommend is that you prepare mentally that there is a chance your child will cry or scream through takeoff and landing, and this is normal. This is totally okay. It's human behavior. We're all learning as we go, and children are just doing their best. So if this happens, just know that it can happen regardless of how much you prepare and how much you bring to help them not experience that. So just be ready for that and keep in mind that it's not going to last the whole flight. I have taken hundreds of flights, thousands of flights in my life, over 100 with my toddler, and I've never heard one child, mine or anybody else's, cry through the entire flight. I have heard from some people that have said their kid or somebody else's kid cry through the entire flight, but it's obviously the exception and not the rule. So stay calm. Remember that you've prepared. You have hopefully watched the rest of our videos and followed our blog. And if you haven't, make sure you visit us at travelfamilyacademy.com or Travel Family Academy on Instagram. Go ahead and subscribe below on this video so you get the rest of our videos. We do weekly tips on how to conquer the fear of flying with a child and toddler, and lots of tips so that you can master flying with a baby or toddler with confidence and not feel overwhelmed about it. Remember, children are only learning, and the sooner we can expose them to flying, the better flyers they will be later on. I hope this was helpful, and if you liked our content, do not forget to subscribe and share with somebody else that could benefit from it. See you next week.